Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Monday Lunch and Learn with Enterprise Nation. Always great to see people first thing. It's awesome to see so many people joining us. Love to hear in the chat where everyone is coming from, where you've joined us from, and what you're interested in to learn more about. My name is Diane. I'm one of the programs managers here at Enterprise Nation, working with Google on our Google one-to-one mentoring. We have seen over the last few months so many businesses, small businesses, early stage startups come into our one-to-one mentoring to be able to understand what they need to learn in terms of their optimizing, creating new websites for their small businesses to understand what they need to do to improve sales and grow their business. So throughout these months, we've been speaking with our Google mentors, such as Ash, who's joining us here, and also Emily, who's the founder of True Label. So Emily has actually had a session with Ash from a mentorship perspective. So she's here to kind of just share what her experience has been from a small business perspective, but also kind of what she's gained over the last sort of 18 months in terms of the challenges and the support that she's seen through mentoring, what tools she's took online as well to see how she can basically improve her business online and offline. And we'll come to a little bit more detail about Emily's store as well, which is really excited to hear her plans basically. So if you're new to Enterprise Nation, we're a small business network supporting up to over 500,000 businesses every year to start, grow and turbocharge their business. We partnered with Google earlier this year to support businesses with a one-to-one session with a mentor like Ash to support them on things like Google Analytics, creating and optimizing their website, as we'll talk about today, some of the social media and digital marketing strategy challenges that people have. And we'll come over some of those pieces today when we're chatting to Emily and Ash as well, and get some really nice insights basically to see what we can learn today from our founder and also from a Google mentor about how to improve our next steps with our business. So I'm going to start with you, Emily, first. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's awesome to hear from you. It's a big question, but can you tell us about your entrepreneurial journey? You don't have to go too far back, but you've definitely had a really exciting last 2 years. But as a designer, as a kind of an owner of a fashion label, but also a designer, and also someone who has an online presence with e-commerce and then an offline presence in Box Park in Shoreditch, can you give a bit more information about your journey, how you got to sort of now, and also your inspiration, specifically about moving to London to set up?
Absolutely. So obviously I am from Barbados originally. It was obviously great growing up there. I know everyone's like, you come to London, why?
That's what I always think.
Yeah, like, why did you leave the sun? But honestly, it's for opportunity. Like I always knew I wanted an online business. I've always worked in retail, fashion specifically. So I always knew that I was going to get into having a brand, and I definitely wanted an online store. Then I was Googling and I was looking at different ways you can grow a brand, and pop-up shops kept like coming up to me. And I love personally the whole setting up a pop-up shop, like that whole just, I don't know, vibe of just like being able to see your idea come to life. That for me is like what keeps me going. It makes me so excited. So I knew I had to do pop-up shops. Obviously in Barbados, I already had a store. So I was like, well, I'm not going to pop up like on the South Coast when it's like 20 minutes away. So, and then obviously like the States, yes, it's closer to Barbados, but to actually like go and do business there, I was a bit nervous because I didn't really know. I didn't want to mess up, So I was comfortable with coming to London. So I did my first pop-up in Topshop on Oxford Circus, and everyone's like, how the hell did you do that? And I always say, just Google. It's just like research and getting out there, booked the ticket, came up. As soon as I came up and I did that pop-up shop, I knew exactly where I needed to be. And then obviously years later, here I am. I did go through, it's not, just hopped on a plane, came to London and, set up and everything was great. I did a lot of different pop-ups. There's a lot of like planning and preparation that went into it. I was originally actually supposed to open my store in December 2019. And then that switched to April 2020. And then obviously COVID came and was like, oh, sis, no, not this year. But then in October, I got the opportunity to come back up and really launch the shop. I always knew that obviously from the pop-ups, like in-person retail is also something that makes me truly happy. Like seeing my customers in person, meeting new ones, just getting the brand out there. Like people walk by, they see Barbados on the door and they're just like, what is God doing in Barbados? You know, like why who's Bayesian in here? And I'm like, it's me. So it's fun. It's like, you know, I really enjoy what I do, and yeah, it's just getting out there.
It's amazing because also to talk about that challenge that you had, where you had best laid plans, where you thought you were going to open up the pop-up at a certain point, and obviously COVID, I don't know if anyone's heard about it, has put a lot of things on hold for people, and especially that physical retail, which is so experiential. And from a fashion perspective, where especially as a designer, being in store, being able to speak to your customers to see what that next step for your brand could be, I guess that idea of missing out on that would have been a challenge for you, but you had an online presence. So how did you manage kind of that period of time when you weren't physically in store as had been planned, but you had that online presence? Because you built your website yourself, so you've actually started that yourself, you created that. And that's one of the questions a lot of people have, is how they're nervous, they aren't technical, they're nervous about creating a website. It feels like a bit more of a reach for people. So can you explain to people, you know, how did you create your own website and take that business online?
Oh boy, a lot of trial and error. I mean, I'm not like, you know, bashing anyone, but I started with Wix originally. That was like years ago. But then I moved to Squarespace. And if it's one like platform that I would suggest someone who's just starting out, use Squarespace. It is so, because I'm not really, I mean, I'm good on social media, I'm good with branding and different things like that. But when it came to actually building the website, Squarespace was so easy to use. There was no like coding, like everything. It's streamlined. Honestly, if you want something that's easy, looks amazing, definitely use Squarespace. Then you can upgrade to Shopify, you know, incorporate the apps, do a little bit more coding when you're comfortable. But yeah, and I was lucky enough also that when COVID happened, I was already set up online. So I didn't really, and again, I did set it up all the way from Barbados. So it is possible to do it like all, and it was all set up here. It wasn't set up like, because I spent, when the brand was like first around, I spent about a year and a half trying to build like how I would be able to actually do the website, and like, you know, fulfill orders and stuff all the way from Barbados. But it would have cost a fortune, and it wasn't feasible for a small business at all. So then I put obviously good old Google to use. And I set everything up from Barbados. So at the end of the day, like when COVID came around, I was lucky enough that, okay, that's all set up. But I then had to look at actually like digital marketing, because as I've discussed before, like, you know, I'm very open, vocal about it. When I first started, I was doing a lot of influencer marketing, and it didn't necessarily work for me. I put a lot of money and time and effort, and I really, really believed it was going to work, and it just didn't. And it's not saying that it's not going to work for somebody else, because it really and truly it does for so many people. But for me, I knew from that first failure slash lesson to, you know, try something else. And I feel like that's also a really good quality to have as an entrepreneur, is that you need to be able to say, okay, that didn't work, maybe we'll cross that, like we'll try that again sometime, but let's try something different. Let's do this instead. So that's when digital marketing came in for me, and I did loads of like online courses. The other thing to know about those is that they change all the time. The algorithm, as we all know, changes like crazy. So just keep updated on it, and just, you know, trial and error, trial and error. That's it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know we've talked before when we've chatted around kind of the online resources that you have looked at, because you've got such a strong social media presence. So the brand and the aesthetic seems really strong. But as you're mentioning there, there's a lot of different channels for digital marketing, which all feed back into your online site. So any kind of channel you have is supposed to go back to your shopping basket. Basically, you're always trying to get those conversions. So what other resources did you use to sort of learn those next steps? Because you are literally a founder that wears all the hats. You're looking at the manufacturing, you're designing, you're also in store, you're looking at social media and imagery, and then the website. So for a lot of our founders here, and in the chat, there's a lot of questions which we'll come on to as well. So they would love to know how someone as a time poor founder, where would you start? So how did you start with your courses? And then I guess, how did you find the Google one-to-one mentoring?
Well, I found the Google mentoring through you guys. So thank you. And honestly, when I got that email, I was like, I'd be really stupid not to take this up. Like, it's free Google, like you get a mentor from Google and it's completely free. And even if you took one thing away, that's pretty great, So for me, I would always say, like, you just have to be able to be so, not necessarily, it's not motivation, it's not inspiration, it's more so like dedication. Like, you know what, I'm in this, I'm gonna make this work, I'm gonna find a way. You're gonna find a way regardless. So whether that is sitting and spending a day, a month, and you're just going to research, like, for me, it can be new fabrics that are eco-friendly. It can be new manufacturers that I can work with. And I really dive and do a lot of research. And then what you do with that research, there's one platform that I'm like, you need to use, and it's Canva. And it's like
Ash is a Canva fan. Last month we talked about Canva, honestly.
Oh, it's the best. But so like all of my tech packs, like everything I do on there, I take all my research, I make a little report, then that way it's there. Because even if I don't implement it right away, because I mean, we've talked about this before, like it's really easy, especially when you're like, wearing so many hats and doing so many things, you have to worry about accounting, VAT returns, this and that. It's like, there's a lot going on. So then you're like, okay, I'll put this aside and then I'll go back to it. So like the Google mentoring with all the digital marketing and stuff, I have all the reports there. And like, when I'm ready, then I can click it and then I have everything there. It'll be like, as if we had just gotten off the call, because I have literally, I take notes like nobody's business. I probably have 120 notebooks just full of information.
Yeah, and it's just in time learning, right? So it's stuff you needed, just when you needed it, and then stuff you're thinking about researching and strategizing that you can come back to. And I know that you had a big strategy session with Ash, and there's some things that you haven't yet implemented, but you will, because right now it's not top priority, or things are moving on. So it's not just a case of like thinking, it's like present day and then future forward as well, which I think you've done really well, especially that your growth shows that, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for noticing.
Of course. And I guess, I mean, Ash, you mentored Emily. So she booked in her session and she chose what session she wanted to have, what she wanted to learn, basically. And I think one of the things when we're looking at creating and improving websites is that, as we mentioned, it's quite overwhelming when you think, gosh, what would it look like? And what template, maybe website builder, should I use? So we know that a website is a small business's shop front. It's a place that people go to and find out more about the business, find out more about the founder, find out more about the product. It is the doors that opens up to the business. But people often struggle with that, even though they know their brand and product so well, creating that initial shop front. So what would you say are the fundamental elements that all websites, specifically sort of e-commerce or something client facing, what should they have in place, be thinking about?
Yeah, well, a good question. I definitely say it's try and put yourself in your customer's shoes. What is the experience like to actually get on the website and navigate to certain products or navigate through the site itself? And normally a lot of people, when they get to that first page, it's literally the menu. It's selling everything to you, you know, so where your offers are, a little bit about the brand, the rest of it. I think, you know, having a look at some of the other competitors as well, just to see how they're doing things and what they have on offer is also a good thing to take a look at. But it really is for me about the experience, because again, if your website's not so good or people have to click through a couple of pages, they're going to move on and go somewhere else. So again, the experience, yeah, has to be flawless, definitely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we're so, I guess, spoiled in a way. We are so past sort of like web 1.0. We're so forward thinking about, we want everything to be super slick and look really great. And I know, Emily, we talked just earlier about kind of brands you're not looking to emulate, but kind of learn from. And I think that's what kind of Ash, you're saying there, pick up, you know, brands who do something really well and see how you can implement it yourself. One of the things we chatted about last week, actually, Ash, was around, okay, every business should have their own website. So, you know, the URL that matches their business as close as possible. But you reminded me about Google My Business as well as a really useful tool for small businesses to implement. Can you explain kind of an overview of Google My Business and what it takes to sort of set up a business profile?
Yeah. So Google My Business, which is now a Google Business Profile, it's changed a bit, basically is a free tool. So if you have a location, or maybe you're offering your services in an area, you're able to actually be placed on Google Maps. So this is a fantastic thing. And, you know, if you do have a location, someone's around, they're doing a search, or maybe on Google Maps for a product or something, your store could pop up. And even when we did have lockdown, there were so many businesses that were still using it, even though their stores were not open. It was something where people would go onto Maps and try and find that business, but then also having the connection to a website, which also helped to promote that business. So, you know, it works both ways, and it's a good thing because we know when you deal with a brand new brand, you've got to have the confidence in the brand as well. So reviews is a really big thing, and this is a great place where you can have your reviews come through, as well as, you know, products, any special offers which you could be posting on, which is quite cool. So all of it is free, but it's just another space on the internet where you can promote your business for free. So why would you not do it? But again, if you don't have a location, obviously this is not the thing for you. But if you're operating in an area, the service area, sure, you can have that. Yeah.
So to that point, I guess for Emily, that's a perfect thing to have, because it's something that it comes out if you search, say, I guess, fashion brand in Shoreditch or something that will hit some of Emily's keywords, then there's something that will come up and her business profile will come up the side. And we really see how people interact with the search to find things. So those top hits are really where we want to be, really, in terms of what's popping up at the side, what's popping up in the, you know, shops near me. You know, suddenly I need to find an outfit, so what's near me quickly. And if I can do that where from my location, I can find True really easily, right? So it really starts to bring, I guess, the online and offline space together.
Yeah, no, sorry. Emily was like, yeah.
Sorry, that's me.
In fact, your business profile looks really, really good. Like, you got products on yours, your call to actions are fantastic. You know, it's an ideal example to showcase. So
perfect. So everyone who's watching should go ahead and search for True, and then they'll see her.
Rank it up.
For two things, push that up, but also they can learn from example as well.
It's good to take the time out and actually set that all up. And again, it doesn't really take that much time as well, because again, this is like one of the many hats that you wear as an entrepreneur. Like, just take some time out and do it, edit it each month. You can easily streamline it. It's not that difficult. And again, like, some people, they get a bit, because I mean, I have friends in Barbados who they have brands as well. Even people here, they're like, oh, you know, I'm thinking to start where, like, I was like, honestly, just do a little bit at a time. It's baby steps. And the thing is that then once you do it yourself, then you can actually hire someone, because then, you know, as we say in Barbados, you're not set for idiot, you know, you're like, no one's going to tell you something and then, you know what's going on. So you'd be able to know what to do, what should be happening. And so try.
That's thinking ahead for how you're going to recruit as well. So you don't need to know it, you know, so in depth, but you do need to have a really good, you know, some sort of understanding. So if you do pass that on to someone, you know, you feel comfortable that you can kind of check their work and also feel confident that
what's going on.
You could take it back, you know what's going on. That's amazing. And
Absolutely.
to that point, there's a lot of things we've talked about with sort of website performance as well, and maintaining kind of understanding how your website's performing. And it's the one thing we talked about this last month as well, Ash, with Sama and Rabia from Soap and Skin, around if you set up all of your Google Analytics, that's great, but you do need to go back in and check how that's working. Is it looking, you know, are you making any changes? Are you implementing any changes to your website based on that report, basically? And I think you guys talked about that when you met as well, around kind of analytics. What was that kind of conversation around, Emily? What were you kind of wanting to, I guess, learn and do? And I'm not going to ask if you've implemented, because I know sometimes it takes a bit of time.
So, I mean, no, I learned a lot. That session was like, because I mean, it's one thing, I did the courses for the Facebook ads and I set them all up. They were doing really well. And, you know, I was really happy. And then all of a sudden it just kind of fell down. Like, obviously something changed within the algorithm, and it was just like what was working before decided, oh, sorry, not today. And then, you know, you then do another course and you're learning more, like you're adapting, changing everything. But the other thing that I didn't do before our mentoring session is I was just checking like Facebook analytics. I wasn't necessarily then going deeper into the Google analytics, which, wow. That's one thing that I suggest you do as well, because like you'll then be able to target the correct audience. Like I was targeting people that weren't even on my website before. And I was like, oh, ding, ding, that's why it's not working. Let's try this location, this age. And, you know, then it started come together and you're like, okay, this is it. But yeah, no, you definitely, again, I would suggest, like, if you can do it once a week, go through once a week. Because I mean, as also having your own brand and stuff, your website's going to be updated. I'm hoping once a month. If it's not, guys, get on it. Because I mean, there are times like even the brand story itself, like I update that every couple months just because, you know, something might have changed or it's just a bit outdated. Like you need to make it a bit more, you know, in the present. Changing color schemes, photos, that sort of thing. And again, that all ties into the Google Analytics. So again, you look at like different locations, price points. That also helps me, like what products should I feature on my homepage. Also, like sense. You know, I find that a lot of people actually they were going to my story page as opposed to straight to the sale. So I was like, okay, let's put a little snippet of our story on the homepage. And again, that button, it gets pressed, you know? So it's good to like dive into those analytics and then make the edits on your website based on that.
Those are some amazing outcomes. That's really, really useful to hear kind of the practicalities of how you've looked at kind of your Facebook analytics, tied it back to your actual Google analytics and kind of implemented those change. And they really sound like they worked. And you know kind of where people are coming from. That's really cool. So yeah, I think that's something that people would really like to take away. And I think, Ash, you speak a lot about Google Analytics with some of the businesses that you mentor. I know it's a topic that always comes up. But what are some of the other topics that come up for small businesses when they mention about struggling with either creating the website or improving? I guess improving is one of the things. I think people start and have something, but what are they struggling to improve on?
I think they're struggling really to keep the engagement going. So, you know, if someone comes to your site and maybe they don't spend a lot of time there, you know, oh, but why are they not moving on to the other pages? Why have they not seen this? You know, and you just struggling to really understand what your customers are doing when they get there. And that's the importance, again, of having something like analytics, because for me, it's kind of like being in your store, but online. So you can see people coming through, you know, exactly what products are doing really well, what offers are not doing well, and so on. So I think, again, just going back to user experience and using that data to really just trying to design something which is very simple and easy to navigate, but also as well, it's trying to think about the seasons too. So I think we spoke a little bit about Google Trends. And actually looking at some of that search activity, what's been going on in the last 12 months, which could be based around your products or your service. and seeing those spikes, and that could give you a good indication of when you should be kind of promoting something, or when people are going to come to your store for a particular product. So yes, there's more than that as well, but making sure that you've got everything on offer, kind of like a shop window.
Yeah. And I mean, Emily spoke about that, where she's looking at visual merchandising and she's moving things around in the store. I guess what you're saying there is you should move things around on your website too, because you're merchandising it per the seasons, per what's demand telling you, and kind of leading from your customer, because where they're going and where they're kind of navigating around your website is the way they kind of walk through your store, Emily, which is really interesting to think. And I think it's a nice way that might maybe anchor it for people to understand that your shop in person and your shop online are kind of the same thing in a way.
I've actually just redone my shop page, so everything's color coordinated, and I'm really happy about it. But again, it's really important, and you can look at other websites as well and see, they're constantly updating it. So it might, like I said, the little snippet of the our story actually then led on to the blog, and then what I choose and different things like that. So you do generate sales from just testing and just re-merchandising things, basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think trial and error is something. There's nothing, you can't really break anything. You can just put it back as it was. If if it wasn't working, you can always put that back. So we've got some really great questions coming in the chat. So I'd love to just kind of understand, Emily, just while we wrap up before we go to Q&A, is what do you think was kind of your biggest takeaway from doing the one-to-one mentoring session with Ash and Google?
Just seeing the depth that the analytics can actually go, and then like the changes then you can make that actually generate sales and more customers. Honestly, if it's one thing that you need to know to do, is definitely go onto your Google Analytics and understand where your customers are coming from and who they are, so that you can then target them.
The other last question I had was really, what would you suggest small businesses do to prepare for your session? So when you have the form, for anyone who hasn't gone through to book a mentoring session yet, they are unlimited. So you can have one session, you can have 2, you can have 5 or 10. Once you go through to the form, you basically put in your details, a bit of information about your business, and also what you're looking to connect with a mentor for. What would you suggest, Emily, people do or think about before they prepare for their session, because they can get the most out of it that way?
Well, the number one thing I would say is focus on one thing at a time. So I know that you're going to do these Google mentoring sessions and you're going to want to maybe learn like 5 different things, but you're not going to do that in one session. You're going to have to, you're probably not even going to be able to do it in 5. You're going to have to, streamline it a bit and like really just decide what you want to focus on and take that time, learn it, master it, and then move on. And I think that, again, because as an entrepreneur, you're wearing so many hats, like we were discussing as well. If I feel to design for 1 month straight, I will do a design. And honestly, and nothing's like put on the back burner to the sense that it's all like up in flames and everything. I'm still giving it as much attention as I can, but like my heart is in that, in designing or in content creation or something like that. So really go there with an idea. Like for me, I really wanted to be able to, I knew that my digital marketing, it wasn't going to the right audience. Diving into the Google Analytics made me learn, okay, let's try targeting other people then. And then voila.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I would say definitely get, tight on what you want to know, what you want to learn, and go from there.
Amazing. Thank you both so far with these really great insights. I'm going to dive into the chat here. Now, someone has asked around Canva. We touched on it very briefly, but Ash, do you want to pick up what Canva is and how small businesses can use it?
Yeah, Canva is so it is a free design tool. Obviously, it does have a paid for option as well, but it has grown to incorporate video. If you need to have any kind of stories made up for Instagram and things like that, it has all of the templates, which is really good. But it also has royalty-free GIFs and images and videos. I mean, yeah, I love Canva. And for any business that, as you say, if you don't have enough time, And also the money as well, because it does cost a lot to go to a designer and say, hey, can you just brand this for me? Can you make this change? It can take a little bit of time. And I think if you've kind of got your brand ready and you've got your colors and everything else, you can implement it into Canva and just push out a post, you know, and keep that consistency of your brand's colors and, you know, how it should be. Maybe if you're just getting started as well, this is a good place to have a look at some of those templates that are out there and customize them. They're royalty free as well, so you don't need to worry about any legal stuff. But again, it's something which I think is amazing. And again, with Canva, I would say jump on YouTube. There is some great videos on Canva just to show you how to use it. But I mean, the new things like video editing as well, because we know the impact of video, especially on social media. You can do a lot on there. You can get nice graphics and titles. So I think it's a fantastic tool to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing about Canva that's so good for people who maybe don't have such a strong design eye like Emily does, but even though Emily uses it, is that it has that consistency. It's such a good tool, especially for the free element of it. We all, you know, when we're speaking to small businesses, we know that extra costs for, not to say you won't use a graphic designer in the future, but when you're first starting out, and again, you're trying to do a lot of things yourself, I think it's such a useful tool. Again, because you know, then you understand what you want it to look like because you've done it yourself as well. And the template is so strong that you can use. So I think that's something that, you know, if you're new to something, you don't really have the resources to put in for a designer. It's not to say you're not going to use one in the future. It's just for this time, it's a good way of having that brand consistency when you're starting out. There's another really good question here from Alice Ash, and she's asking about service businesses. So rather than a product sort of e-commerce store, product-based business, she runs a coaching business for mothers, and the conversation around websites for as a store is kind of harder for her to picture as a sort of consultancy, as a coaching business.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're operating in a service area, obviously, you know, the business profile, obviously, if you can kind of say you operate in that area, that's good. But having a website for that kind of business where you're offering a service, I think really what you're looking at is where are those customers online and how can you connect to them? How can you put your business in front of their faces? So I think it's about doing that research, finding out as also the social media platforms potentially where those clients might be too. So it could be LinkedIn or something like that. And then being able to kind of have either some content marketing, so some good kind of content which is going to benefit and build the trust with those new customers there. But yeah, again, having a page which can bring someone in, be able to give them a little bit of information and where they can leave a lead and, you know, have their email address so you can get in contact with them, but making it really simple. Okay. Important. Yeah.
So you do need to have on a sort of shop front page for coaching or consultancy, there does need to be somewhere where people can contact you, leave their information, and ultimately there's somewhat the product there that you can get back to them, and it make it really easy for them to connect with you as well.
Definitely. And then one thing I will say as well, which I think is a key thing, think about having a blog or some form of content that you know that that customer is looking for, or they're trying to find the answer to it. And you'd be surprised the amount of people that do Google searches just to try and work out something. And if your, let's say your blog page pops up, that is the start of your funnel. So you're able to bring that customer in on that blog entry. They trust you. What else can you do to reach the goal of your site? You know, so yeah.
Tim has a good question here. He's asking, with all the tools that Google has, he's interested in knowing what are the most powerful tools you have if you have limited time to spend on it. And I think that touches on what Emily's referred to around, you know, wearing many hats and being a time poor founder. I guess this question to both of you, Emily, where would you start with some of the Google tools? And Ash, what would you recommend?
Okay. With the Google tools, again, I'm just going to say, like, the analytics, like, you need to dive into it, because at the end of the day, like, you need to know where you're going. A captain who's driving a ship, he needs to know where he's going. He needs to know how he's going to get there, the route he's going to take. And I feel like the Google Analytics really does that for you. Like, it will show you, you need to be here showing this to this person, and then you do it like that. So that's one thing that I would say like for Google, that's what you need to do for sure.
Would you agree, Ash?
Yeah, I would agree. And I'd also agree as well, if you've got a website, Search Console is definitely something that I would recommend, because you want to understand what are those keywords that people are placing in Google to reach your website. That's, fantastic in terms of just doing that keyword research, and that's a free tool. You got Test My Site as well, which is really good. So if you're not sure if your site is optimized for mobile, or maybe if it's a bit too slow, you can run a report, and that's going to help you out with that as well. There is Google Optimize as well, which lets you know how your store is doing, and it gives you a report, which is fantastic. So yeah, and then last one I'll say as well. So if you're doing any photography for your store and you really don't have like a good photo editor, Snapseed. Go to the
Yeah.
App Store, install that. Simple, free, quick. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. To that point, with so many tools, May May's Cakery, which sounds delicious, by the way, is asking Ash directly if they're wanting to get help in a few areas, what's the best order to go for of topics of interest? So for those who don't know, when you're signing up for free Google one-to-one mentoring, there's basically a list to kind of keep you on track to say, are you interested in Google Analytics? Are you interested in being more discoverable on maps and search? Are you interested in digital marketing strategy? So for May May's Cakery, which one would you say as a new beginner, you're trying to put together a strategy, an online strategy, what would you say you should start with?
I would definitely recommend the workshops that we have online. So they're on YouTube, so you can go to the Google Digital Garage page, sign up. It's free. It's 1 hour. I definitely recommend Digital Marketing Strategy, because that gives you an overview of all of the different channels, helps you to think about, okay, here's a goal for my business at the moment, and what's the strategy that I can create with the resources that I have with me. So I would recommend having a look at the workshops first, picking out the things that you're interested in, and then if you want to go further, sign up for a one-to-one.
Very good, very good. One of the things, I guess, from that point is when you're thinking about kind of the next step of start, like you've had your one-to-one mentoring and you've gone through some digital strategies, how would you think is best to kind of keep a small business on track? Because obviously they need to be accountable to themselves. So Emily, how do you kind of make sure that you're doing the things? Because there's only you really to tell you to do it. So we talked about procrastination earlier. How do you keep on track with all of these different things and make sure you do the things that you spoke to Ash about? He's not going to follow up with you too tough to make sure you do it. How do you keep on track?
So I like to, like I said, I have a lot of notebooks, a lot of lists. I have things that I do daily. I have things I do weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. So I always, go back to those lists, and I just make sure that, okay, yeah, I haven't actually done this in a little bit. Like, let me actually touch up. Like, I haven't posted, for example, my next, I will be honest, I'm only human. You do fall off your routine a little bit. I haven't posted a blog in a very long time, but this week there will be a blog on the website. So there you go. But yeah, so I mean, you just you do have to hold yourself accountable. You do have to be like, okay, this, it doesn't need my full attention every single week, but maybe once a month I can do this, and make a list and have it there, have it, in your agenda or something, so that you're looking at it all the time. And because at the end of the day, you got to watch out for you. Like, no one's gonna come and have you done this, have you done that? Like, no, you need to do it yourself. You need to want to do it yourself as well. And I feel like once you get that, you'll be good.
That's some really good advice. And I guess last question before I kind of do a wrap up here for both of you. We haven't touched on this too much, but at the same time, for creating, sort of improving your website, Google search is important. So what would you say, Ash, are kind of some top tips to be more discoverable on search? What would be kind of some fundamentals? Is that something like a Google Pixel that people need to be aware of to make sure that they are coming up in search when people are searching some of the keywords?
Yeah, sure. I definitely say Google Trends for a start, just to work out, what people are searching for. And you can do that in a span of 12 months. So you'll know kind of what to put on your website. So it is trending. Search console, I'll recommend again. So again, if you do want to be discoverable, what that does is it lets you know organically where your ranking is, but then also it will let you know, as mentioned, what keywords are being used to bring up your pages. So definitely that's something I could recommend. Also analytics too, purely because you want to know when someone does come to your site, what are they doing? And obviously with Google, obviously we want to give the best results over to the end user. We want to make sure that they get the best things. So making sure that you've got everything on your site, it's all clear, sitemaps clear. Also make sure that you've got headings nice and clear for each page, a description as well. So the meta tag or metadata that you can have, make sure that you've got that nice and clear as well, because that's going to get picked up. So as much information that you feel that your customers are going to be searching for in search, make sure you have that information in the text on your website. Okay.
Yeah, just a little insert there as well, like on Squarespace when I was first starting as well. Again, for people who are starting off with their website, for your actual images, you can put in alternative text. That helps a lot. And I did that. That was like pre Google mentoring everything. That was years ago. I was like, oh, what's this? And then I started coming up and I realized like, okay, that is really cool. And then obviously blogs with the keywords and stuff, that also, which is why I'm going to be starting back very soon.
And that's a good point to make for Squarespace. That, what Ash is talking about, making sure you've got a clear sitemap, making sure that you've got your header tags, making sure you've alt text your images. That can happen in a website template builder, right? You don't have to, give that to someone else as well. So just if anyone's thinking, oh wow, this sounds very complicated, can Squarespace do that? It's actually available to do that. And a couple of notes in the chat around there's been so many actionable tips coming from this session, which has been amazing. So thank you so much to both of you. For everyone who's here today, again, thanks for joining us. We're going to put together a wrap up, basically, some of the actionable tips that Ash and Emily have shared. So that's going to be a blog post that we'll share as well. So we'll make sure that we share that with you via email and link it out so that you can, because we've covered a lot. So if you prefer to read it and have that list, we'll have that on enterprisenation.com, but you'll also be able to see this YouTube live as a recording as well. And we'll share that in the follow-up email too. So if you've been scribbling furious notes, don't worry. If you feel like you've missed anything, there's going to be 2 ways that you can recap, basically. Finally, Emily, what's next for True? What are you up to in the next remaining months and next year?
So, well, it's full force for the next 3 months, definitely. So I have a couple new ranges coming out. Then next year, new stores. You'll see True all over London. It's gonna be a household name. I'm putting everything in. So, but yeah, just being like an all-round lifestyle brand. Sorry, excuse me. So you'll see like candles, homeware. I'm gonna be doing like perfumes, different things like that, shoes, literally everything. Every single range you can think about, that's gonna be True. It's gonna be big.
That's amazing. So we're really looking forward to seeing that journey and being along with you for the ride as well as Enterprise Nation. And I'm sure Ash will be keeping tabs on how you're going as well. So amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much both for your time. It's always great to hear some of your insights, Ash. And Emily, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, just to hear kind of how you've built your business and how you're managing it so well on your shoulders. With always a smile on your face. So that's amazing to kind of connect with you, and looking forward to staying in touch. For everyone here, thank you so much for joining us via this YouTube live. As mentioned, we'll give some follow-up comms here. So we'll send out more details about Emily, how you can connect with your one-to-one mentoring. If you haven't already took up the opportunity for one-to-one mentoring, you can go to enterprisenation.com/Google mentoring. You can request a mentor there. You've got 7 days a week, so we've got plenty of time to fit your schedule. It's 8 till 7 p.m. Monday to Friday. We can connect with a mentor like Ash. I can't guarantee you're going to have Ash, but there's going to be other great, amazing mentors who can connect with you on your next step to take your business online. So we're looking forward to hearing some amazing stories next month from some more of our mentees. Again, Emily, Ash, thank you so much for your time. Lovely to see you both again. Thank you everyone for joining us for this Lunch and Learn, and looking forward to hearing more of your stories on how you've experienced your one-to-one mentoring with Google. Thanks everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.